Let's go inside the Star with more detail on the Cowboys' new defensive coordinator. Of course, the hires are being made throughout the NFC East. Bobby, reset us on what Harbaugh and Dan Quinn did.
Dan Quinn has gone ahead and hired his defensive coordinator. He's brought Durante Jones over from the Minnesota Vikings, who was an interview candidate with the Cowboys. He was a finalist for the Cowboys defensive coordinator job before they picked Christian Parker. And the Giants, John Harbaugh, every time you say Harbaugh, like, when you set it up, I'm like, what do the Ravens have to do with this? And, like, I'm still not used to Harbaugh being with the Giants yet. But Denard Wilson is the new defensive coordinator for the Dallas Cowboys. Now, we did get the note yesterday. One of the guys interviewing for the Cowboys assistant coaching jobs is none other than Shane Bowen, the defensive coordinator who was let go by the Giants in the middle of the season. So he is one of the assistants who is interviewing here and was, at one time, a really well-thought-of coach.
And while we're talking about news within the division, more rejections for the Philadelphia Eagles. Bears OC Declan Doyle withdrew. This is the offseason of withdrawal. Mm-hmm. That's what it is. The Cleveland Browns getting insulted, the Buffalo Bills, and the Eagles offensive coordinator. Declan Doyle withdrew his name from consideration. He wants to stay in Chicago more to work with Ben Johnson and Caleb Williams. And then Charlie Weiss Jr. is going to stay at LSU.
Yeah, which is hilarious because typically in order to just like make the offensive coordinator jump from college to the NFL with no head coaching experience in between or anything else, you generally have to have like a historic offense. Ole Miss was good, but you got to have like LSU 2019, Joe Brady, to make that sort of a jump. But the Eagles are scraping the bottom of the barrel. They're interviewing Charlie Weiss Jr. and said, hey, will you come be our offensive coordinator? And he said, nah, I think I'd rather stay at LSU with Lane Kiffin's toxic ass than that. But we did yesterday. Did you notice? It's the funniest thing ever.
Did you see Lane Kiffin tweet out like the Trump hats? And then Minnesota happened, and he deleted the tweet.
I heard about it. I didn't see it, but I heard about it.
It was like, make LSU great again, and then Minnesota took place, and then, boom, hit the delete on those messages.
Yeah, it's
wrong, RJ. Your eye's doing something funny.
Yeah, you look like you wanted to say something. That's why I laid out for a sec.
That's the part of society that I hate. That's not a Trump hat. That's not a political thing. That's a funny thing. You know, that's...
Do you think that Lane Kiffin is a Trump supporter?
Oh, I don't know.
Okay, I would think like 98% yes, based on that.
Oh, basically, yeah. See, I don't know. I never like. I just thought like you're just making.
I don't think anyone that hates Donald Trump would make a make blank great again hat. That's just my opinion.
That may be true. I just wouldn't equate the two. I would think, oh, that's funny. You're making a play on a whatever.
Well,
okay.
Charlie Weiss Jr. did turn down the Philadelphia Eagles, and Mike McDaniel officially joined the Chargers, which is hilarious. The Chargers putting out, like, a social media video yesterday of, like, look, guys, he's finally home because he's decided to stop hoeing around and interviewing for other jobs. He's decided that I'm staying home. But let's talk about Christian Parker here, the Cowboys defensive coordinator. And this is, I promise, like you've never heard him before, and you've only heard him a very little bit, but I promise this is a different version of Christian Parker than you've heard even in some of the interviews. Are you familiar with The Sixth Show? You know what that is?
No.
No one knows what The Sixth Show is except Christian Parker, because it's basically like his fraternity brothers podcast that focuses on Philadelphia sports. And 4 years ago, Christian Parker went on his buddy's podcast as just, I guess, like a solid favor. Like, hey, I'm going to come on here. I'm going to talk with you a little bit. This is before he even worked in Philly. He worked in Denver at the time. But he showed up and decided to talk a little bit about the NFL and defensive philosophy. And because it's his buddy's podcast, he was a little more relaxed and talking about some things that I don't think you've heard him talk about in some of these interview clips that we found from him so far. So this is the first clip here. He was talking about going against Aaron Rodgers or, you know, working around Russell Wilson and different things like that. And he was being asked about, like, well, how do you, like, when these quarterbacks are, like, these high IQ, fast mental processors, how do you slow them down? Like, is there anything you can do when they've got all the answers to the test? How do you do that? And this was a really good clip. This is Christian Parker 4 years ago on this podcast, The Sixth Show, talking about how you slow down a high IQ processor.
Yeah, I think the main thing you want to do is you want to look the same as often as possible. You know, you want to, everybody talks about, you know, the old thing was looking at the safeties. You want to read the weak safety. Is he lower than the other one? That means it's probably some type of cover 3 rotation. Are they deeper, cover 2? But now, because everybody's staying in that too high shell, you look at the linebackers and the nickel. So now, like, my nickel, I can't be inside leverage one play, outside leverage another. Like, I want to be zeroed up, and then I want to step to my leverage post-snap. So we want to keep the same picture from a secondary standpoint the same as often. And then on the front, you know, everything you're doing with the front, from blitzes and stunts and everything, you want to just try to find out what the offensive lineman's rules are so you can kind of create what you want. So, you know, whether it's overloading one side to create a one-on-one somewhere else. If you know what offensive lineman struggles with stunt games, and you're going to try to get that on him and isolate somebody else, whatever it is. So you leave the quarterback out of it in some of those aspects, you can affect other people on the field. Because a lot of teams, the offensive linemen are the ones who control the protection. So you want to do what you can to influence them. And then from our standpoint on the back end, it's just looking the same as much as we can to try to, you know, talk them into doing some things that they don't want to do.
You may or may not like this philosophy, Chop. I'm not sure, but Christian Parker's basically telling you, we play the game, we do not play the quarterback. This is we approach the game a certain way, and we play it, and we try to be in control as much as we can. We do not adapt ourselves to the quarterback that we're playing. We make the quarterback adapt to us.
Interesting. I don't know how I feel, because like I would imagine you have to play Lamar Jackson differently than the most immobile quarterback in the league.
Not in terms of coverages. He's talking about in terms of how you want the secondary to look and how you want to mess with their eye discipline. He's saying that disguise, a lot of people think means let's show them this and then we rotate into this. He's saying, no, let's show neutral as frequent as possible and then we break out from that. That's how we disguise, is we show them the same look every time instead of different looks and then swapping out of them.
So an offense that is a timing offense, right, where you want to get them off their rhythm, you would not play that differently than, say, a Chiefs offense that runs mostly off schedule?
You would play it differently post-snap. You do not play it differently in terms of what you're showing them.
Okay.
That he's saying you show them neutral every time so that they don't get a tell. So when he's talking about, like, you know, if you're reading something, if you're reading, okay, the safety's here, or, okay, the nickel is lined up here, he goes, that's too much of a tell that then they're going to be able to pick. If I've just got everybody looking the same every single snap, and then we're quick to get to where we need to be post-snap, that'll be more confusing for quarterbacks than trying to confuse them pre-snap.
But I wonder how many looks you can get to and how fast you can get to the different, more complex things out of the neutral look versus, you know, cheating there or showing it a little bit earlier.
Easier than you can with some of the stuff people always wanted with Flores, which is Flores showing a safety up at the line of scrimmage and then sprinting to bail to the deep end. So it's actually easier, like, in terms of if you want to talk about disguising, it's probably easier for a defense that has struggled with their communication to be in a neutral look as a disguising tactic rather than showing something completely different and then bailing to it. So it's actually something that I would imagine they would have an easier time processing and handling than if you do some other things. Now, fast mental processing is important, and being able to see things in advance is important, and being able to handle those sort of things. And so this is Christian Parker talking about, and this is a little bit longer clip, but the importance and the value of having fast mental processors over maybe the best top-end athletes.
The thing is, the part of my job, though, is to train, to get my players' eyes and their movements to match, what we want to get done. And so, like, you're right, like, there's a bunch of different matchups within each play. There's the O-line versus the D-line, and there's, like, each individual versus each other based off the different play. You got the secondary versus the quarterback. You got the running back versus the linebackers that we're supposed to protect. You got the receiver versus the corner. He has to read the safety if he has to push, crack, or do something in the run game, or if there's an option route that he has to do based off the leverage and underneath coverage we have. So, like, you have to have such a fast processor as a player, and that's what separates the really good ones from the average guys, is because there's some guys who, like, you might come out on the field and see somebody throwing or working out, and you're like, oh, yeah, like, he's straight. Like, I thought he was going to be more athletic than that. But you don't understand the mental strain and how fast his eyes and his brain works to be able to put himself in position to make plays. Because that's half the battle right there. There's plenty of guys. I've coached guys in college that were more athletic than some guys I got in my NFL room right now, but they didn't have a brain. They didn't have the eye discipline. They didn't have the mental toughness to, give up a third down conversion and still have to line up again and strap up. And so, it's just such a high level of difficulty on different levels. And each position has different things that they have to be good at and look for. But you're right. Like, it's so layered in terms of what happens on each play based off our coverage, what we're looking at as a defense, how the offense is trying to dissect us. And to be a good coach and a good player, you got to understand what's going on the other side of the ball. So whatever you're seeing makes sense to you, and you can gain an advantage from that.
This is me waving goodbye to Kenneth Murray based on that description. See you, buddy, because you're a fine athlete at the linebacker position. You don't see it well enough. And how many times do we come in here on Post Hunt Clarity on Tuesday, and I would be talking about eyes. Their eyes are bad. Their eyes are so bad in the secondary. Their eyes are so bad at linebacker. But this is a comforting thing to me still, because Christian Parker's talking about my job is to train their eyes. My job is to make sure they see it fast, and my job is to make sure that they're prepared. And when you hear somebody talk about his tabbed notebooks and all these different things, he's so detail-oriented, all these different things that we've learned about him and heard about him, that he's clearly so obsessive about detail that if he's a good enough communicator, you would hope he then in turn is making these same guys as detailed about the process and being able to recognize things as quickly as possible.
This is kind of like the quarterback, right? Downloading it versus the rocket arm. Like, who's seeing it, where to go, accuracy, smarts versus Joe Milton.
Right, and listen, we've seen quarterbacks figure it out 5, 6, 7 years in the league. The problem is, how many players after 6 years are already athletically done? Like a quarterback can wait 5, 6, 7, 8 years before they figure it out. And a linebacker, 7 years in, at 31 years old, it's too late. It's too late for them. So I wonder, can you train the eyes like you're talking about with other positions because of the age factor? Because you're going to lose some athleticism as you age.
Well, I mean, look at the two best linebackers on the market this year are like 36 years old. It's Bobby Wagner. It's Demario Davis. It's guys who see the game fast. Sean Lee got probably 3 more years out of his career than he should have because he saw things faster than everybody else. It allows you to cheat and get an advantage by being able to get somewhere quicker that your athleticism wouldn't naturally be able to get you there. So I think that he's on the right track, and that's obviously what you want. It's just how good is his ability to actually create those fast mental processors. And we're talking about Christian Parker here, who dove into some of his philosophy a few years ago on a podcast called The Six Show. One more clip here. They were leading him to water a little bit. The guys were. They were trying to say, well, look, you're a secondary coach, and you're talking about how difficult it is. So corner must be the most difficult position on the field, correct? And Christian Parker said, nah, it's tough, but it's not quite the most difficult.
I think quarterback is, to be honest with you. I think quarterback is the hardest. I think corner is second.
Okay.
But I think quarterbacks have to, because you don't even a lot of people don't understand how much of an effect the quarterback has on the run game also. Like, you see guys at the line checking plays and stuff. Like, if there's a look that, you have a run going to the right and they got a 3 technique there and a stacked linebacker and it's loaded over there, you got to check the play, maybe get into a pass, maybe flip the run, or you have to process so much information. You have to get the protection and protect yourself. You got to communicate with receivers if you're at that level. Some quarterbacks have more autonomy at the line of scrimmage than others, but quarterback is hard, man. Like, them dudes got to process so much information before the snap and then during the play. And they got to worry about getting hit by linemen and blitzes and all those things, man. Like, that's hard, but living on that island, man, it's different, because offenses can do so many things to isolate a cornerback, and we can't play cover 2 the whole damn game to protect somebody. Like, you got to be able to stand on your own too and make it happen. So, you got to be different to play out there, because receivers are talented, quarterbacks, their ball placement is elite, and a lot of the rules favor offense. So you can't be as physical as you might have been in college, because in the NFL you got more rules to prevent you from doing that.
And there's a little bit there that you can hear that they've talked about with Christian Parker, about Mike Pettin, who said, I've never really seen anybody who understands how everything works together as well as Christian Parker does. Like, he understands all these different aspects of the game of football and how they intertwine. And you can hear it there. There's not a whole lot of I don't feel like there's a whole lot of defensive coaches that you can hear that have as good of a handle right there as Christian Parker just showed in 20 seconds in terms of talking about this is everything that the quarterback's responsible for. I know the entire quarterback's job. Like, he's got to check this, he's got to slide this, he's got to do this, he's got to do this. And having that awareness of everybody else's jobs. That's one of the things the Cowboys give really big props to Javonte Williams for, is that Schottenheimer says Javonte Williams understands everybody's job on the field so well that it allows him to do his own better, because he understands what everybody's responsible for. He knows how to stress them. He knows how to lean on them a little bit, and that's kind of what you're hearing there from Christian Parker.
Good stuff, Bobby, but talent, roster, depth, skills, acquisition, free agent trades. What is the front office going to do for him?
They're going to give it to him. They'll give it to him. They'll give him resources that he wants. He's already been allowed to kind of clearly make some of his own decisions on the assistant coaching staff. And we did the research on this recently. When they get a new defensive coordinator in here, you'll get plenty of the draft picks devoted to you, and you'll be able to get a lot of the free agent spending that they have, the capital that they have to be able to spend. It'll hand over to you in a lot of instances. And so I'm sure Christian Parker will get some of that. Maybe you're taking a look and you're going to see, who knows, Nakobe Dean maybe ends up here from Philadelphia as a free agent, or Reed Blankenship ends up here as a free agent at safety. Those are the kind of things that I think could be on the table.